we are going to discuss about why cash is not king. See, this is not about the general stuff which you have heard about cash or the money or currency. This is something way beyond it. This is not the general things which people talk about. This is what you see and feel from the general media or the print media. This is not what education system would want you to learn. This is something which established successful people write about it, talk about it, only then you know about it, because there is no other content available in our school system or even in our college system to tell you the real nitty-gritty facts about the cash and why cash is not king in the present scenario. First of all, I would like to thank the LT to giving me this wonderful opportunity. I am really thankful for the Sakran sir to giving me this wonderful opportunity. Let's move ahead. So let me reveal you the secrets of. Okay, 1 second. This head bar is connected. Okay, let me reveal you the secrets of cash. So what we're going to see is we're going to see the change the way you look at the money, because after this presentation you will definitely look the money a different way. Currently we are looking at the money only one way, which is to earn, but there is more to it. The idea is to learn to look beyond the curtain. This will enhance your financial literacy, and this information shared over here is very widely not circulated. Only the top 5 percentile, I mean in terms of the wealthy people, they know this information and they share it among themselves, and they make sure that this is not inculcated in our school systems, because our schools are generally attuned to make employees. They are not tuned to make entrepreneurs. That is the most important difference that we need to understand. Our schools only, because what we do in school is we become a good student, because that will help to us to become a good employee. But it never talks about what it becomes to create a system or a business to become an entrepreneur. So this is what the rich teaches their children, and this is this will not be propagated from a person who's generally an employee, and because they never get to the part to unravel the mystery of the currency and the money. And I'm also going to talk about the secrets of building assets. So let's start with busting some myths. What myths are general common is that cash is not king. Okay, so this was said by Warren Buffett, and this was in 2019, just before the crash of 2020. Warren Buffett himself said that cash is not king, but still Berkshire Hathaway, the company which Warren Buffett is a founder, and the company which he runs, owns $137 billion in cash. Apple, with a market cap of $1.4 trillion, have $192 billion in cash. Microsoft again has $136 billion in cash. But why do they have, when they say cash is not king, it is counterintuitive. I mean, why do they want to hold cash? But they say that cash is bad, but still they are holding cash. Let's hear from Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett says when people talk about cash being king is not king. It's just that it sits there and never does anything. What Warren Buffett is saying is cash cash will never work on itself. Cash is just sits there and doesn't do anything. And moreover, cash makes Warren Buffett unhappy, because the more the amount of cash that he owns, it will be worth less than what the next year than what it was today. So in a sense, they want to make up a cash pile, and in a sense, they're unhappy with the cash pile. So again, it is counterintuitive. I mean, either you own cash or you don't own cash. But now when you say you have cash and then you say the cash is not king, and still you're worried about the cash being not worth the next year, still you're owning cash. But why do you own cash? The reason behind it is to look for the opportunities during threat. So if you've seen the recessions coming up, if you see this is the Dow Jones index for last 100 years, or it's actually more than 110 years. If you look at the Dow Jones index, there were 18 recessions in the period of last 100 years, one Great Depression, in a layman's language, recession is nothing but two quarters of degrowth. 2 quarters of degrowth. Suppose if the GDP is growing at positive percentages, recession is nothing but 2 quarters of degrowth, and depression is nothing but multiple years of degrowth, which is when we had one Great Depression in 1930s. And if you look at the why companies hoard cash is because they would want to invest or they would want to pick something up when the opportunity strikes. Add a company, they would want to build asset only when there is recessions. So when is the next recession coming? Or are we already there? Or is it recession? Should we say yeah? Or for some recession is a threat. See, recession could be good for some and bad for some. Some would be very opportunist on the when the recession comes because they are holding with cash. But for some, it is a naked truth that they are not ready for recession. So for them, there will be loss of value or loss of net worth. But again, as I said, is recession anytime due? Are we already in one? Yes, we are already in one. The recession is just started from the month of April, from the month of March. The first quarter was a degrowth. First quarter, you mean the Jan, Feb, March, and they are expecting a second quarter double-digit degrowth in developed countries. Today, the S&P rating agencies and yesterday the World Bank, they've come, the IMF, they've come out with the number saying -5% of degrowth in India. So that means we would technically be in a recession period throughout this year, and probably we'll get back to our positive numbers going forward. But I don't want to go to this, go more on the data part. Idea here is to understand the realm between the money and currency. See, what Warren Buffett is holding is dollars, and dollars is nothing but currency. Now, how many of you really understand the difference between money and currency? You can just go and use a chat box and tell me what exactly is money according to you. What exactly is money? I would like to see some good answers. What exactly is money according to you? And what exactly is currency according to you? People who know, like Suren, we have already discussed that. You can please not share this over here, but let's have some discussion on this. Okay, no idea by Muthu, Prinpa sir, no problem sir, no problem. You will get to learn more about it. Money is fixed and currency is not. Okay, Kasu, Pana, Duddu, money, Anant, okay. Financial freedom, okay, Lakshmi has some financial freedom. Like currency is a medium of exchange. Money is value. Very good, Shankaran sir. Very good point. This is what is being the difference between money is monetary instrument. No, I think you've just you need to check with Shankaran sir's this thing. Currency is actually the monetary instrument, not the money. Money is a store of value. So let me just so we have see the reason behind why I'm asking this question is we interchange, or they have told us, the big people, the bankers who've set the system, who have rigged the system, they have told us that what we hold, the currency notes, is the money, because they made us believe that. So that's the reason you can see that we don't have any clarity on exactly the difference between money and currency. Money is a store of value, as Mr. Shankar rightly pointed out. Money is something that people will accept for exchange of goods and services. Money is, example for money is gold, silver, copper, brass. Something that really holds value and something that can be exchanged for your services and good offered. And this was the medium of exchange before the last 100 years, I mean, before 1920s, or even for in Indian case, before 1930s or 40s, we used to have currency coins that were made up of silver, 11.66 grams of silver. That is called the Naya Rupiah. And the currency, now what exactly is currency? Currency is a medium of exchange of money. Now, why was currency in a way created? Why was it created? When there's money, when we are exchanging gold and silver, what was the need of the currency? The need of the currency is, it was actually first done in China. The reason behind this is the fear of theft, the fear of theft of the gold and silver that we are carrying. That was a real threat. And what would happen is you will not get the right denomination for gold and silver. Suppose I go to Shankaran sir and purchase an X and Y product. And Shankaran says, Sushil, your bill is 599 rupees. And now if I have gold coin, I would need the exact denomination to give Mr. Shankaran sir the right value. Aman, of course, it is easy. I mean, you can break the system down, but it is more easier when you have a currency, which is medium exchange. In currency, you place your gold with a goldsmith or a gold deposit holder. They in turn offer you a note, which says that this can be exchanged for gold anytime in future. You need to understand this very clearly, because this is the basis of the entire discussion. Currency is a promise to pay you back when you are coming back to me. Before we move to gold standards, you could actually go to any bank and pay the currency note and get your gold back or silver back, whatever it is backed on. So it is a medium of exchange. It makes business easy. It makes business to grow, and it makes the transaction more easier. You don't have to worry about losing stuff. But the problem with currency is its value can go to zero. Currency per se, which the paper note which is printed on per se, has no intrinsic value. But money has value. Gold doesn't have value. It is backed by something which we trust on. And the examples of currency is the present generation fiat currencies that we use, like rupee, dollar, euro, Singapore dollar, Chinese yuan. Any currency in current world is all nothing but fiat currencies. And this is the most important slide, I would say, that you need to understand the difference between the money and currency. So let's move on. As I said that previously, the gold used treasury would offer you a gold a currency note, which could be redeemable. See, over here clearly this is said, redeemable, repayable to the bearer on demand, $100 on demand. Whatever be the price of the gold, you will get it there. That time the price of gold will not fluctuate much. So it was gold currency, redeemable in the gold coin, and gold was kept as a treasury in the safe to avoid theft. So this was very when this was introduced, this was amazingly, people jumped into it and people loved it. But before the US introduced, Jewish bankers introduced 300, 400 years in Europe. And there was a whole lot of story about it, how they make money and by cheating people. So I will not go over there now, but I just want to keep my focus over here, because it is us to understand the difference between money and currency. And on the $100 note, it says the note is a legal tender to the bearer on demand for the gold coin. And this is only, it says that it is backed with no real assets. And these days, believe me, this is issued against debt. It is not issued against any real asset, any real foreign reserves. It is only issued against debt. Debt is, in sense, they take debt from their own Federal Reserve Bank, and then out of the magic money, the money is created overnight by the whims and fancies. I mean, like poof. So what's wrong in creating such money? What's wrong is, the more you create the currency without any backing, it would affect your purchasing power. Now, why purchasing power? What is purchasing power? Purchasing power is the amount of goods and stuff that you can purchase out of a or set value of currency note. I'm saying currency, okay? I'm not using the word money. Currency note. Now, purchasing power of like 1,000 rupees today would be lesser than the purchasing power of 1,000 rupees next year. That is what Warren Buffett is afraid of, because something which affects the purchasing power, and that is inflation. We will come to inflation later, but let's see how purchasing power has affected the currency vis-a-vis gold, because since gold is the ultimate standard, gold standard of money, let us understand how our Indian rupee, which is INR, has been affected. Let's see, so my father was born in around 1964. The price of gold per 10 gram was 63.25. When India won its first World Cup I think, couple of days back and to 38 days back. It was just a couple of days back then. I mean, 2 days back, and it was 38 years back, 37 years actually. So the rate of gold was 1,800 rupees per 10 gram. Now look at the stark difference. I would want to highlight 1971 as the key year. We need to highlight 1971. 1971, the price of gold was 193 rupees. And when I was born, it was 2,130. And during the Manmohan era, when he liberalized the economy, it was only 3,466. And it just went on. During my wedding, it was 14,500. Again, at 2009, 14,500. And today, it is 49,000. And tomorrow, day after tomorrow, you never know. It's never come down. Over the period, it's never come down. It may be 55, it may be 58, it may be 60. People are giving huge targets. I'll tell you why they're giving huge targets for gold, but that's all later part. But the idea over here is you need to look at this point. CAGR is nothing but compounded annual gross return. From 1971 is 11.8%. 11.8%. Tell me which asset gives you 11.8% return. I'm not here betting for gold. I mean, I'm not here trying to sell gold or you should invest in gold. But the idea over here is nobody talks about gold as an investment strategy for last 40, 50 years. Why? See, again, I'm not betting on the gold at all. I mean, there are way other things where I can earn a lot higher than 11.8. But for the average Joe, for the average Indian, for average public who has no knowledge upon financial literacy, even if they keep buying gold, they would have protected their currency from devaluating. And believe me, 11.8% CAGR is one of the top CAGRs that you can get for any investments. Your insurance policy would only give 6.2% or 6.3%. If you're lucky enough, you get a bonus. Else, you will be stuck at 6.2%. Again, this is nothing to do with any insurance policy, or I mean, I'm not being against anyone, but it is just a perspective. Insurance gives you the protection of life. I mean, of course, that is there. But as an investor, see, I'm talking about the investor mindset. I'm not talking about your priorities. That is different thing. But as an investor, as an entrepreneur, we need to have an investor mindset to protect the money which we earn. So purchasing power is something which we have to look at. Now, going forward, what is the worth of 1 lakh, which was, say, if you had a 1 lakh rupee in your safe locker and you didn't want to invest anywhere, and you just wanted to keep it safe and you didn't want to take any risk. And at 8% inflation, what it be worth in around 10 years from now, which will be around 43,460. That means you lost 60% of value. 60% of value. But just doing nothing, keeping the cash at home. And going forward, it depreciates until it reaches 5,400 in the next 60 years. So that is the power of currency. I mean, this is all currency notes, 1 lakh you're holding. Had you hold 1 lakh of assets, then there'll be a different ball game because you would have made a hell lot of profits. But this is only the currency assets I'm talking about. Now, is it just us? Is it just the INR, Sushil, or is it that INR is only rupee is depreciating, or why do you want? Is it that India is always have a rupee which is depreciating a rupee, or is it the same with all the other fiat currencies? No, this is the inherent behavior of fiat currencies. It is you cannot hide anywhere. I mean, you can hide a dollar at some point. Dollar will be better over the period of time, but ultimately dollar is losing value. I'll tell you how in the next slide. See, this is the purchasing power of dollar. A dollar which was worth 100 rupees, $100 in 1913, ended up at 2008 being around less than $3 to $4. Imagine just the amount of degradation of losing of purchasing power. And the more the higher the crashes in the market, the steeper the fall. Just remember again my words again. The higher the crashes, the higher the number of recessions, the more the fall. So recessions have never helped any fiat currencies. It has only punched it deeper. Now we're again staring at a recession, and that is bigger than 2008, 2009. So I don't know how the fall will be. I will come to that point again in my future slides. But going forward, here's something that you should look at. Federal Agency, which is like something called RBI of India. This is the Fed, which is the Federal Reserve of America. The United States was created in 1913. post that, you would see that it was quietly stable. But after 1944, something happened. It started with Bretton Woods Agreement, and Bretton Woods Agreement changed the currency as we look at it forever. Yes, forever it has changed for still now, and it is on a shaky wicket now. So let's go ahead and see. So what went wrong? So the real truth is, before 1930, the currency was still money. Yes, the currency was backed with money. So currency was in part real money. You can go to the bank and take your gold back. But currency was backed with real assets, so it's a real money by then. But 1944 changed everything. The fiat currencies were, instead of previously were pegged at gold, and now they were pegged with gold and dollar. So 1944 again, that when the victors of the wars, World War II, when they met again, when they realized that the debt is too high, they had fought a war which they not be able to repay, and they don't have the gold to repay. America was one which made a huge benefit out of it, because it helped people, it supplied its arms, and it made tons of gold. So what happened in Bretton Woods Agreement is, America sat there and told, boss, gold will not be alone in the part of the fiat currency system. You have to put the dollar in. And when people ask, why do you want to put a fiat currency in or currency in? But then he says, because dollar is still backed by gold, and we have 8,000 tons of gold, of gold in our treasury. So that time nobody would fight with America, because it was so strong, and it really had that gold, 8,000 tons logged in its treasury. It was really the fact. So, but what happened in 1971 was, Richard Nixon realized that it is very difficult to grow the economy with rising debt. There was multiple recessions between, and then there was rising debt. So what Richard Nixon did was, he ditched the dollar with the gold, because 1970 was a very crucial period. Many economies were facing recession, and they were holding dollars in a sense. They were asking the America to give us dollar, give a dollar back, and take your currency, because America can crash anytime. So then Richard Nixon decided to ditch the system and call that the dollar will only be backed, will not be backed by any gold anymore. So in 1971 changes, things spiraled out. So currency from 1971, or actually 1944, has been affected with a necessary evil. They call it inflation, but they call it necessary evil, as if it is very necessary. But before, if you see the previous eras, inflation was under control in the entire world. It was predominant only at some places where the rulers were not able to rule properly, but it was not everywhere. Now what has happened is they exported inflation everywhere. Now why I'm trying to tell about this is, let's see the next chart. See the next chart. This is what the inflation level is. The $1 which is adjusted. If you see from 1850s to 1944, the value of dollar would be between $1 to $3. That means for over 100 years, it would be moving around from $1 to $3. But after 1944, when they brought the Bretton Woods system, the dollar lost its value. From $3.50, it jumped to $33. I mean, just the span of like last 48 years, or maybe 75 years, it jumped. So now let us understand. Okay, Sushil, now you have talked about inflation, you talked about currency, you've talked about money. And now I'm an average Joe. I mean, come on, I cannot understand these markets and all those things. Let me do one thing. I will beat the inflation, and by putting it again with the fixed deposit, because fixed deposit is still, I think 70% of the Indian public believes this is a fixed deposit, and they still have their assets. I mean, their savings are in fixed deposit. Now, let me just tell you one question. The easiest way to beat is fixed deposit. Okay. Now, if I give you 1 crore, okay, and ask you to choose between 2 options, which option will you choose? Just use the chat box and type. Which option will you choose? I can't see my chat box. Okay, just go back. Okay. So which option will you choose? Option 1? Okay, option 1. Okay. Okay, so majority of people going with option 1. But let me give you one more perspective. What if the inflation rate was 9%? And then now which option would you choose? Had you chose option 1 and the inflation was 9%, you would still be losing money, because your actual return will be -5%, -0.5%. And this is the current scenario, which is option 2. 6% is the highest rate of interest and 5.8% is the inflation rate. So current actual return is only 0.2%. So you need to understand that if you're going with fixed deposit, you just cannot see fixed deposit as it is. You need to even see the inflation rate. So inflations will play a crucial role when you choose a fixed deposit. So now let us understand the story of Zimbabwe's starving billionaires. I think most of you would have seen a scene of Zimbabwe's starving billionaires. Many of the Zimbabwe people, they're billionaires in a sense. You would be thinking like, billionaire, Zimbabwe? Is it counterintuitive? But yes, they had currency notes that had values of million, billion, and even trillion. Yes, exactly trillion. You needed this much of note to buy one bread of loaf. So this is what the evil of inflation is. This is hyperinflation. This is what inflation does if the country is not managed properly. The debt is not managed properly. This is hyperinflation. And as I said, that $1 trillion note, nobody would have seen it in the entire life. And this went for auction. And people bought this note. This note hardly has any value. But people bought this note. This went for auction after this currency was devalued. And the first auction, this particular note got sold for $135. And currently you can post lockdown, you can still buy it for I think $19. It is actually 2,000 rupees of Indian note. Just 2,000. This is $10 trillion highest currency printed, and it is valued at only 2,000 rupees. So, as rightly said by a noted French writer, at the end, fiat money returns to its intrinsic value, which you've seen intrinsic value is nothing, is zero, and it is zero. This is said by a French writer, Voltaire, in 1770, because 1770 was when France was under inflation, hyperinflation. Let's see. Now, Sushil, is it hyperinflation everywhere, or was it there for ages? It has been there for centuries. Yes, it first started in Rome in 300 AD. See, the idea behind understanding the history is, it should not be, you should not think this as a one-off event. India strong, we have $500 billion of foreign currency. Nobody knows what Rome was the most powerful nation at its time, and corruption, the corruption that Rome had. So what happened in Rome 300 AD is, when the debt was piling, they were not able to pay back the debt. So what they did was, instead of having a 10-gram gold coin, they reduced the grammage of the gold coin to 9 grams. And then they further reduced to 8 grams. And further to 7, 6, 5. Until the people realized that people had so much of gold. So inflation started. So that's how the inflation started. And then there was a collapse of Roman Empire. I mean, this is truth. The Roman collapsed because of the corruption and inflation. And then the Chinese saw the inflation in 1971. They were the first to bring the currency notes. The France in 1796, Austria 1922, Bolivia in 1985, Brazil in 1985, and just recently Venezuela. Venezuela saw its hyperinflation, where the inflation rates were thousands of %, and it saw its economic collapse. Now, what fuels inflation? Okay, let's understand. For starters, inflation. What is inflation? Inflation is something. Suppose me, Chaman, and Suren are there. Okay, so we three go to a shop, and we three have equal amount of cash, and we want to purchase a loaf of bread. Since we have equal amount of cash, again the question is equal amount of cash, we have equal net worth, equal, everything is same. We would pay the same price what we are paying today. Now tomorrow the inflation rises, and say Chaman makes more money because since the gold is rising, and Chaman, and then after 1 year we go to the same shop, me, Suryan, and Chaman go to the same shop. My money power would have substantially not reduced, but it not been gone up. But Chaman's money power has gone up because of the inflation, and he's able to pay more money out of his pocket. Now, when you are able to pay more money for the same good stuff, and which is a limited supply, that is where inflation starts. So what fuels inflation is the increasing supply of money in the financial supply, and then there's rising debt. So in the current we need to understand the inflation in present tense. The major economies of the world, the G5 and G6, are printed $6 trillion. 6 trillion is like 2.5 times the economy of India. Economy of India, Brazil, UK put together. So $6 trillion is a huge money. And if you see 2008, yes, Chaman, imaginary, but that is real. So 2008 was, they only printed 1.5 to $2 trillion, but this time they printed 3 times more. So there's increased supply of money in the financial sector. They would use different terms. You need to understand the terms that they use. It is very, very tricky. Financial stimulus, asset purchase, bond purchase, quantitative easing, QE. So all these things all means the same thing. That is, they are printing money. Now the fiat currency will lose its value because of we get imported inflation. The inflation which is produced by printing of notes get imported back to our country. So then our rupee gets depreciated. So going next. Now what about it, yaar? I mean, come on, Sushil. You are all talking about all doom day. What is this, Sushil? Cash na vikku kudada. Neenga na soltingla cash na king. Ipo na vandu soltinga cash na king illa. இதெல்லாம் எனக்கு ஒன்றும் புரியல. சரி, இதெல்லாம் சொல்றீங்க தட் கேஷ்னா குளோபல் எக்கானமில இருக்கு. அதெல்லாம் எனக்கு என்ன, what should I do about it? Come on, yeah, please take me there or there. Now, are you ready for the ultimate truth? The cash is not king. There's something that which is king. Type ready on the chat box, and I will just share this next thing. Type ready when you so that I can share what exactly is king. F4W, flow. Okay, ready. Okay. Lakshmi has already seen that. Okay, ready. Baba is ready. Jiva is ready. Okay. God, good. So Lakshmi, I think, has already seen the slide. Probably, he's right. Flow, cash flow is king. Thanks, Shaji Bharat sir. Okay, let me think it. So the ultimate truth is, cash is not the king, but cash flow is the king. Yes. Now these are, but I've heard you. Hey, thanks, Lakshmi. Okay, all right. So these are the golden rules of investing. Again, if you're ready, if you can tell me that the dash buy assets, the dash only have expenses, and the dash buys liability, they think they're assets. Now you need to fill in the blanks, okay? Who buys assets and who thinks that they have only expenses, and who buys liability thinking, appa, na vaangita asset vaangita iniki, but adu yaru? So just type BOI, bring it on, and I will just share. Bring it on. Rich buy assets. Okay, very good. GVR, you're right. So I'll just go to the next one. BO, bio, bring it on. Okay. So since GVR has already started, oops. Okay. Not revealing that much. Okay. So fine. Okay, Baba sir, thank you so much. Super. That's amazing energy. That's really the way forward. Okay. So the rich buy assets. The poor have only expenses. And the one who buys liability, poor buys liability, no, Lakshmi Narayan, poor cannot buy liability because they don't have money to buy actually. So poor only have expenses. I'm really sorry to say that. So who buys liability, which they think are asset? Okay, now here's the golden moment. The middle class. So employee, yes, employee, Muthu Kumar sir, you're right. Employee again come to the same class, which is middle class. We the middle class, Chaman's father. Yeah, of course. The rich buy the assets. Okay, anyway, the middle class is the general people like us who buy liability thinking that they are asset. And the next line is very important. Let me show you this. The poor and the middle class work for the money. We work for the money. And the rich have money to work for them. This is the ultimate difference between the employee mindset and the entrepreneur mindset. I really want you to think from the entrepreneur mindset. We always are taught to think from the employee mindset that we need to work really hard and make money. Ultimately, we lose money. So the idea over here is that there's a perception that the poor and middle class work for money, but the rich only works. Rich have money which works for them. So let's go to the next slide. So here the ultimate truth is, as my grandfather would always say, pano sambardhukku romba kashtam, but he'll say in Hindi. Okay, I'll just tell it in Hindi. Paiso kamaona bahut aaram hai, but paiso lukalna bahut takleef hai. That means it's easy to earn money but hard to safely keep the money. It's my grandfather J. Amachan Pukadia. So the only way forward to beat this kind of inflation and this kind of currency system is to build asset. The entire monetary system is rigged for you to not buy assets, for you to only think that what you buy is asset, but then they are liability. But you need to understand what real assets are, and you need to create passive income so that you quit the rat race and live life in peace. The idea we every day, I mean, every one of us are running a rat race. The idea is over to understand why we are running behind, or what we are running behind, and how to create assets so that we have passive incomes. So before we go that, we need to understand the two types of asset: appreciating assets and depreciating assets. So what are appreciating assets? Appreciating assets for me, I mean, again, is not something a recommendation or something like that, but it's just that I feel the real appreciating asset is gold. Many would feel that gold has no value, it doesn't give any return, it is all blah blah. They all will tell you, will talk it out so that you don't buy gold. Second thing is real estate and rent fetching properties. Third is shares, which is equities. Fourth is fixed deposits, which gives you fixed amount of returns every quarterly, half yearly, or yearly. Fifth is which gives you dividend. Again, these are all in stocks, income every quarter or every year. And bonds and NCDs by good own businesses. Yes, to own business is an appreciating asset. If you are running a business, that is the biggest asset that you have, and you need to use that particular business to take out cash flow from the profits and build the real assets, which is the other assets, not the or even the business is the real asset. Now coming to the other part, depreciating asset. Okay, what is depreciating asset? First thing is cars. Cars are actually the biggest depreciating asset, because the moment you buy it, yes, Mr. Rajesh, FD rate should be equal to, or actually should be more than the inflation, so that it appreciates the underlying principle. You're right, Rajesh. Cars are the most important depreciating asset, because the moment you buy a brand new car and take it out, you are losing 20% the same day. You don't know, you may probably go check Google, how do you lose the money. Computers, of course, again, this is not that you don't want to buy computers. I'll come back to that later again. Machineries are again assets, but they're depreciating in value. That's the reason we take depreciation every year in income tax on cars, computers, machineries, furnitures, mobile phones. Okay, punches come back again. Okay, and electronic gadgets. See, we need to understand where we would be losing money and where we would be making money, so that only then that's a clear way forward. Now, these things are where are depreciating assets, but that doesn't mean we should not buy it. We should buy it when they are given at a value. You need to look at what amount you can actually pay for, and not just go all in for it, because and ultimately you lose money on it. So purchase these things, which is depreciating asset, as an expense, not as an asset that will give you value. If it has a value end of 3 or 4 years, you're good. Else you should treat that as an expenses. If it gives me value, good. Else I'm going to throw it out. So what is liability? Liability is, again, the biggest problem is to take loans and to purchase these depreciating assets. Think a while to understand this logic, because this is most important thing. This is where an average middle class people like you and me, we don't understand the power of loan, and how it can affect us by buying depreciating assets. See, you can take a loan for appreciating asset, because you have underlying value. If you're taking a loan for business, that's again appreciating asset, because you're going to make money out of it. There's going to be a cash flow positive. But understand that never take a loan for depreciating assets. I am totally against. I mean, it's just my personal view, but I'm used by differ. But liability is the loans that we take over the depreciating assets. Now, this is the most important and favorite slide that I like. Why is I am a value buyer. I mean, I love value. I will see value everywhere. I mean, if you ask me to give 2-3 things, I will easily tell you where the value is. So always look for value, because there's a famous saying by Warren Buffett, and this is my favorite saying. This is my favorite line. I love this line, and I love reading it again. Price is what you pay, and value is what you get. நீங்க பணம் கொடுக்குறீங்க, அந்த பணம்க்கு அந்த அர்த்தம் கொடுக்க வருதமா உங்களுக்கு, அந்த வேல்யூ வருதமா இல்லையா? We have to think. That we have to think, and every time we make a purchase, we have to use our head to at least make sure that we're getting right value out of the purchase that we are taking. I know Rajesh sir will be very the value வந்து கண்ணல பாப்பாங்க. That is everything. He will always try to see value. Even Chaman is just like that, and many I think of us will definitely look for value. So how to look for value? Look for discounts, look for distress sale, factory sale. There is sale every twice or thrice a year. And timing is more important. Wait and buy. I mean, why do you want to just buy outright now? Just wait for the right moment and buy. There is big billion sale. There is great Indian sale, Diwali sale, Christmas sale. Every time you will find online people giving a sale. That is the time you buy these assets which you want to own. So ultimately, money saved is the money earned. No matter how much you earn, you may earn like 2 lakhs a month or 3 lakhs a month or 1 lakh a month or 50,000 a month or even 30,000 a month. But the idea is how much do you save back? I always when I used to study in US, people used to tell me that my salary is 1 lakh USD per annum, and in India they would say my salary is 10 lakh INR per year, and people who earn 10 lakh INR a year, they will always feel low about not able to earn that 1 lakh USD. But the next part is they're never able to see that how much money they're able to earn. In USD 1 lakh per year, they hardly manage to save, say 10,000 USD per. That is 10% of the entire amount. They hardly manage because the expenses are so high. The purchasing power is so high. They're not able. The cost of living is so high. But in India, the entire 10 lakhs is your saving because you have your own house. You have your father which is earning. Even if you don't have an earning father, you still be saving for 4 lakhs out of it. So your 40% is your saving rate, and then the saving rate is 10%. So ultimately, the idea is even if you earn more, the idea is how much do you save back. So that is the most thing. So if you buy things that you don't need, you will soon have to sell things that you need. So this is and we need to build passive incomes. This is the most important thing. We need to build passive incomes. So what most people do, they earn, most employees would earn, and before on 1st of every month they get the salary. Before 25th or even 20th of every month, they lose all the salary. They'll have no money to save or even to think about saving. So what they do is they earn income and then they buy and they spend it out. But what rich people do is they earn, they save first and then they spend the money, and the savings they put to invest in assets, and the income that is generated out of the assets is then they buy the luxury goods. It is not that they don't buy luxury goods. It is only when they've invested enough that they start giving passive income. Only then they look for planning to invest in luxuries. So luxury is nothing like, say if I want, say I want to own a nice SUV. That is my dream. So my dream should not be, I mean, just because I'm not, just because I should save, that should not stop my dream from becoming reality. I should work accordingly to make my dream come true. If I want to make an SUV, or buy an SUV or buy a good house, I need to work so that I make enough money and then buy my dream. So we should not stop dreaming at all. But only thing is we need to act towards it. So I'm not asking not to dream. I'm asking is to build assets so that they build your dream. Okay. So what? How do you buy luxury goods? Is again start saving, build capital, never lose capital. The first important rule you should never forget is never lose capital, and the second is never spend your capital. Whatever savings that you've done, never spend it, and you get old by then. Yes, Baba sir, you're completely right. You get old by then, but it's a process, Baba sir. I would completely agree with that because many would say that. It is like gratification. I mean, you don't. It is postponing the gratification. But ultimately, if tough times comes to you, even when you're old, you're still able to have a good car, and you're able to be financially free. You don't have the mental tension of that when you're in a crisis. Should I sell my car or should I take my FD out? So that kind of crisis you will be avoiding. But of course, I completely agree that there's something which we have to let go. I mean, it's a taraju. It's something which you have to it's a cost that we are paying. And once we reach that stage, then it's for the next generation. I think we have already done what we should, that needs to be done. So never spend capital. Okay, Ramesh sir, we always get young. There are two rules. I mean, once you build your savings, never lose a saving. I mean, no matter what, you should never lose a saving. Even if you made a risky bet, just keep the risk very low so that avlo pochina parvala. Second thing is never spend the capital. Never spend your savings. Buy from passive income, which already discussed. Now, there's one way to maximize the returns. Power sir, this is again this is how we can actually reach our targets faster. I'm telling you again faster before even getting older. Age is just a number. Yes, Ramesh sir. So how do we reach a number faster? So the way to do it is just track the recessions and depressions. This is the only way to grow your wealth faster. Because if you see, there are 18 recessions and 1 depression, and in each recession, these lines are actually recession lines, these gray areas. And in gray areas, if you see, the Dow Jones have fallen close to 25 to 30%. So this is where you need to enter. So you need to know where should I deploy my money and when should I deploy my money. You cannot deploy the money when the markets are at the top. You cannot take the money out when the markets are at the bottom. So you need to time the market right. Hold the asset or cash till you buy the asset at a cheaper price. The more the prices are cheaper, the more money, the faster money you make. And right now is the right opportunity. I mean, come in any asset, right now is the right opportunity. Now, before we go forward, this is only for the kids. Okay, I mean, we have 2 young chap joining us. I would just ask our experienced gentlemen to over here to earn 2,000 rupees. What is the time that we need to put in? Just give a number. I mean, it can be hours, it can be minutes, it can be, just give one number. But to earn a rupees 2,000, what is the minutes or hours that you personally need to give, or maybe a day or 2, whatever it is? Or just give one number. Just use the chat box, please. 1 month, okay. 30 minutes, okay. Shaji, 30 minutes, very good, sir. Can I have some more? Okay, okay. I'll just go forward, and it takes hours or minutes to earn 2,000, but it just takes few minutes to lose 2,000. So use your money wisely. Golden rule is money saves money. Again, now again the rule. I will go back to the basics. Start saving. Some people, they say that when should I start saving? Should I save and spend, or should I spend and save? The order is straightforward. You should save first and then spend the rest. So start saving, the earlier the better. This is for the younger generations. Save first and spend next. Important to invest in savings. Liquidity of your assets is matter. You need to make sure that you put your money in liquid assets. And you need to know that if you're buying real estates, you need to know that it's only for the next generation. Real estate is not for us, so you and me. If we buy real estate, it's only for the next generation to enjoy. This is a fact, because only then the real estate price will rise like anything, and then you get the value out of it. So never invest in anything that you don't understand, and always take little risk, because risk is where your money may grow a little faster. So I would put this risk part to 5% of the total asset. So, and always do not wait. Number one, sell time, what we will think is, 1,000 rupees are saving up. Let me just earn 1 lakh or 5 lakhs or 10 lakhs, and then I'll start saving. Some people will have a bigger targets. Let me just start 50 lakhs, and then I'll start saving. You know, saving time. So people will postpone that. But the idea is they are losing on the compound effect. So it is earlier to start, even if you have 1 rupee or even if you have 1,000 rupees, just start early. Now, if you want to build, if you want to learn about how to build assets, and this is a process behind building assets. You can actually build assets with infinite, you can actually build infinite assets with limited capital. Yes, this is possible actually. But again, we need to go deeper into, I'm not going deeper now. With same capital, you can use the capital again and again and make your returns free. So there's a process to it. You can use multiple assets like real estate, gold, and equity to time it rightly. So how to build your passive income and to cover your monthly expenses, and when is the right time to buy, because this is where it matters. The timing matters, and time to exit. when you invest, you all should know, okay, when I should exit. So if you want to learn more about building assets, stay tuned or have a one-to-one schedule, one-to-one with me, because we need to buy assets and put it into the pool and keep growing the pool so that our passive income keeps growing. So important is, our goal is not to be filthy rich, but to be rich, filthy rich, rich in adventure, rich in health, rich in knowledge, in laughter, in family, and rich in love. So this is the most important, and this is going to be my last slide. I'm going to leave you with two options. Use chat box. I'm not going to pass any reference over here. This is just two options available to each of us to choose, and which option do we choose? So go ahead. Maybe after this presentation, you can discuss it, or if you want to discuss it on the chat box, go ahead and discuss it. The first scenario is a person having a cash of 1 crore in hand, has a monthly debt of 80,000 rupees, has a monthly expense of 1 lakh per month, and is driving a new car which is loaned out and using top gadgets. This is scenario one. Okay. Now look at scenario number two. A person who is debt free and having a cash of 30 lakhs, but having a monthly expense of 30,000, driving a second-hand car and having a 10,000 rupees mobile. So again, I mean, this is open discussion. I'm not passing any judgments over here. We may look two things differently. So which scenario would you prefer choosing with? Because that will be your, okay, Namashivayam says scenario two, because this is what your personal style is. I mean, this is what your personal inclination is. You may not be a risk taker. You want to live life easily. Shiva Shankar says 1, Baba 1, okay. Venkatesh says 2. Scenario number 1 is people who want to have more cash, live on the edge, take more risk, and live life to the fullest. See, I will tell you again, this scenario 1 and 2 doesn't matter. It's just the way you look at it. Again, Ramesh RS 2, Lakshmi Narayan 2, Baba 1, Shaji 1, and 6M. What is 6M? I know 6M. Okay. Shireen Yusuf ma'am, again 1. So this is only the style that we prefer. I mean, it is again not going ahead, not passing any, because there are multiple styles to live our life, and this is just one out of many. Let me go to the next. Mix of 2. Okay, good. Okay. And this is that was for the personal life. Okay. Now this is for the business. So what do we choose when it comes to business? Scenario number 1. Ex-entrepreneur, X is a name, owning a business, turnover of rupees 100 crore, and with the 100 crore turnover, he is earning a profit of 2 crores, managing a debt of 5 crores with 100 employees. But with these positives, he's not able to give time to the family since he's more engrossed in building his business. Because if you take your business to 100 crore, that means you would have taken more time to it. Lakshmi answers scenario number 4. Okay. Okay, why entrepreneur? Why entrepreneur is someone who has a niche business. He is a master of his business. He's happy doing 5 crore turnover, taking higher profit margins of 40 lakhs, and having zero debt, no tension, 10 employees. He has ample time for himself to live life for himself and with his family. Okay, we have our answers. R.S. Ramesh 4, Varadhan 4, Muthu Pinfasa 4, Lakshman 4. Again, see these two things, style, Aram 4, these two things are different styles of businesses. No style, we are not passing any comment. GVR 4, Bhashadivar 4. Okay, we are not passing any comment because this is the style that we take. This is the style that we are. This is the style that we associate with. Someone would want to own a big business, want to own a big name, want to run behind those fancy numbers. But ultimately, it is, as I put the last word, time. I mean, time is yours. You can, how do you want to invest your time is up to you. You may have money today, but you might have no time. Going 10 years back or 15 years back, you might have time, but you may not have money. So again, we are not passing any comments. Baba sir, 5. Okay, sir, 5 is no option, sir. Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir. Last and but not the least, business job will give you basic earnings to keep you from becoming poor, but only the right investments makes you rich. Thank you again. Thank you again for listening. Thank you so much. Please give your feedbacks. If you love the session, please give your feedbacks. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So, thank you, Sushil. A super session. Much